Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Changing Lives. Today is a little bit different. My scheduled guest was unable to be here, so I figured I would go ahead and give it a shot at just doing my own. Since today is Halloween, it seemed like a great opportunity to talk about the different masks that we wear and what it cost us to maintain that false self and present to the world as someone other than who we are, um, and who we want to be. And so I'm just going to share the mask that I have worn in my life and what they have cost me and what I have gained by taking those masks off in the last few years as I've gotten older and wiser and healed from a very severe depression and changed careers. Um, and if anyone would like to in the chat, feel free to ask questions or share your own story. For those who don't already know, my Substack is Changing Lives. And I do these lives with different guests every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Central. And I also have an archive of hundreds of written posts on my page, which is just wendygordon.substack.com. But it is Wendy with an I, WendyGordon.substack.com. Anyway, the first mask that I learned to wear from a very young age is the mask of being the person who knows all the answers. I was the straight A student that other kids hated as I got older because I would ruin the curve for them on tests. And I was the one who, when the teacher asked a question, my hand would immediately shoot up. And sometimes they would say, well, let's see if anybody else knows because I answered so many questions. But so I learned very quickly that, knowing the right answer got me praise and got me good grades and made my parents happy and made me feel good about myself and smart and all of those things. And that continued through college, through graduate school, less so in graduate school, because obviously there's a whole lot of other very smart people in seminary with me. But certainly through college, graduated summa cum laude and just constantly was praised and asked to tutor other students, etc. And I wore that mask proudly. I loved being seen as smart and being in all the gifted and talented special classes and advanced stuff. But the older I get, the more aware I become that, sometimes I am dead wrong about things. And other times, what I think I'm right about, I don't know enough about. I may have part of the story, but not all of it. As I've shared before, my religious beliefs are one example of that. I no longer identify as Christian, despite my former career as a pastor, and despite the fact that I do still currently attend a church because I like a lot of other things about it, like that it is LGBTQ affirming and very active in social justice ministries and directly, collecting food for food pantries and so forth. But being the expert with all the answers, it was a heavy burden, even though it brought benefits with it. And that continued into my former career as a pastor. I was expected to be the expert that people would turn to ask questions like, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Or, the Bible says this, what does it mean? Or what do you think? Or how come how can you be a female pastor was another one, because the Bible says women should not have teaching authority over men, and other verses quoted out of context. But I vividly remember one person coming to me for advice, coping with something that had bothered him for years, and asking me a question along the lines of, why did God let this happen? And me saying, better minds than mine have wrestled with that question for thousands of years, and I have yet to read or hear about a fully satisfactory answer. And he was angry and he said, well, when I go to a plumber, I expect them to know how to unclog my drain. And I expect you to have the answers about God and theology. And that's what you studied in school. And along with that, there would be people that would always want me to pray for them because they would think that somehow I had this inside connection with God, or I was closer to God than they were, or God would be more likely to listen to me. Um, but again, the older I've gotten, the more I can see the wisdom of other spiritual traditions and spiritual leaders and just other people that I have conversations with. Um, that I'm just open to, that in the past I would have dismissed out of hand, considered wrong, or at least wrong for me. And now I'm more curious than judgmental and love to have conversations with people from other spiritual traditions, atheists, pagans, witches, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, you name it, Jewish. I'm just fascinated to learn more. Um, and so I'm grateful that I'm at a place now where I'm okay with saying, I don't know, or being proven wrong about something, and that I no longer feel the need to always be right. Um, so that's the first mask that I wore for years, and that I have learned as I've aged that I can take off and be upfront about not knowing something. And that has served me especially well in my new career as a writer, speaker, and coach, coach in particular, because I'm very upfront with clients from day one that I don't have a perfect life now, and I'm not going to tell you that if you follow my 10-step plan, your life will be perfect, your problems will be solved, you'll never struggle with your mental health again, or any of the kinds of outrageous promises that sadly some coaches do make. You know, do this and you'll be rich like me, you'll be thin like me, you'll be whatever you want to be, basically, if you pay me enough money and have enough sessions with me. And that's just not how I operate. I believe that we all have the answers within ourselves, and that part of healing is learning to trust ourselves again and to find our own answers, which we do have. Um, and that we all can directly experience the divine and have conversations with the divine and feel that connectedness, that, no spiritual leader or anyone else is has some kind of inside track to the divine that the rest of us don't. So that's been very liberating for me to just see myself as a peer. And yes, I do have some training. I'm a certified, or not. There's not a certification, but I'm a trained NAMI support group facilitator, which is National Alliance for Mental Illness. So I lead online depression and anxiety support groups for NAMI as a volunteer. And that certainly helped my coaching, as has my professional background as a pastor. But again, it's just so liberating to not be expected to have all the answers, and to be upfront and say, this is what has helped me. You might want to try it and see if it helps you with your anxiety or whatever. Um, but if it doesn't, don't do it. Try something else that does, and you may know something that works for you that I want to try. I'm not, better or more enlightened than anyone else. Maybe, further along my recovery journey, and therefore able to kind of support and encourage someone who is struggling more than I am at the moment. But, no one, I don't, no human is ever going to be perfect, fully enlightened, or whatever. And I am glad that I realized that and stopped trying to be, basically. The second mask, big one for me, was that I pretended to not be emotionally affected by what was happening, even if it was happening to me. If someone made a hurtful comment, or mocked me behind my back and I overheard them, or a friend betrayed me, I used to literally have this routine where I would, say to myself, "Okay, just stay numb, and don't show it that this is affecting you at all. Just be numb, pretend that everything is fine, and you don't care what names they call you, and you just laugh along with them, um, and pretend that it's all fine. It doesn't matter." And that was something I had to reclaim because I am a highly sensitive person and I'm an empath. So when I was a very young child, I was very emotional. Um, and, I heard as many kids do, when I was in trouble, my dad would say, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." And another time I was just crying inconsolably. And when I told my mom what I was crying about, her sympathy turned to, that's ridiculous. You're overreacting, kind of a thing. So I learned that it wasn't safe to show emotions, that was, meant you were weak and you're setting yourself up to be hurt. Um, but again, just in, you know, recent years, as I have gotten older and wiser, I have kind of reclaimed that my emotional self, and through therapy and reading and research and all sorts of other things that have helped me, tapping. Um, I have gotten in touch again with that emotional self to where now I cry in public unapologetically. A TV show, a movie, anything can bring tears to my eyes. Certainly, the news these days can make me cry, so I limit my consumption of it. Um, and it's been a great gift to reclaim my emotions and my right to express them appropriately. And it's just been so life giving. And what I've learned is that now that I'm allowing myself to fully feel sadness, grief, outrage, um, all of the, so called negative emotions or painful emotions, I'm also much better at being able to feel utter joy and delight and wonder. And so when I walk in the park and I'm, just watching a bunny rabbit or a great blue heron and just standing there eye to eye with it, marveling at it, it's such a great gift. And so many other people, pass me on the path that are talking on their cell phones or they have the headphones on listening to music that are just oblivious to it. And that's fine. People can obviously make their own choices, but for me, it's been so important to reconnect with that part of me that is that sensitive soul that wants to help every person and every animal. And of course, I can't, but there are some things I can do. We earlier this year we had some birds build a nest on our balcony above the fire sprinkler was kind of the base of their nest, and they were barn swallows. Anyway, so I eagerly awaited for the eggs to hatch and have the nestlings um, peek their heads above the edge of the nest. And unfortunately, there were four birds, baby birds, and as is common, I learned when there are more baby birds than mom can feed, either the stronger, larger siblings or the mom will push one out of the nest, and that happened, and that nestling, really tiny, not feathers on it yet or anything, fell to the hot cement on our balcony, but it was still alive. And so my husband and I were able to bring it inside and, shred up paper towels and make this little nest and deliver it to a wildlife rehab center the next morning, still alive. And that was such a good feeling. Um, so things like that, in the past I would have been determined, oh, I'm not going to express my emotions because it's not safe or people will judge me. Um, One gift of my depression that was super severe and almost killed me a few years ago was that I couldn't help but cry in public because I was just such an emotional wreck. And I learned from that experience that most people won't even notice. They're, up in their own heads and have their own life stresses that they're dealing with. B, those who do notice will either pretend they don't notice or they will be genuinely concerned and ask if I'm okay and can they do anything to help. I never once had, anybody mock me or, derisively say, "What's your problem?" because I've got tears streaming down my face and at church or wherever. Um, And so that was very liberating for me to realize as well that I don't need to apologize for my emotions or for feeling things more deeply than many other people do. And again, in my work as a coach, it's been a great gift to be an empath and to be able to sense how people are feeling, even if they're not, showing it externally with tears or yelling or whatever, and to kind of hear what they're really saying underneath what they're actually saying is a great gift. Uh, and the third mask that I would say I have worn is the mask of someone who is um, always honest and does the right thing no matter what. And I've realized recently that I am very honest, and I'm the kind of person where if I get the check and the waiter has left off my beverage or something, I will call them back and say, "Hey, you forgot to add this." But I'm still human. The other day, I was at the grocery store, and when I was out to my car unloading groceries and checking the receipt to be sure I had gotten everything, I realized that there was one item that had remained in the cart because it was heavy that I had not been charged for. And I did not feel like going back inside the store and waiting in line again and going through the whole hassle so I didn't. And just little things like that remind me, I'm human too. And I'm not always completely honest with everyone about everything. And more importantly, I have the same capacity within me to be cruel or judgmental as anyone else does. And so one of my frustrations lately, as our society has become so polarized, is that it's very tempting to respond to hate with more hate and to be super critical of the people who are, you know, issuing blanket condemnations and spreading cruel lies about the LGBTQ community or immigrants or women or take your pick, racial minorities. Uh, and it's easy to respond to that and say, well, all MAGA Republicans are horrible, evil people, racist, misogynist, et cetera, et cetera. And that's simply not true. Uh, and I have had to learn that I can absolutely condemn behaviors and um, empathize with those who are being harmed right now and do everything in my power to protest against it, to help those who are being harmed when that's possible, and demand accountability for the people causing the harm. But at the same time, if I do that in a way that, makes fun of someone's weight or it just says F whoever, um, and is all about just feeding the cycle of hate and wanting revenge and wanting, well, if my party were in power, we would be doing all these wonderful things and none of this would be happening. Um, I do believe things would be better with different leadership, but at the same time, it's ridiculous to blame any one person or even one party for all of my country's or the world's problems. The fact is, we have had broken systems in the United States ever since our founding, really, but certainly since at least the 80s, from my own lifetime recollection. Um, we were an oligarchy well before the current administration, and again, I just have realized that I don't have all the answers and I don't, recycle every item I possibly could or always respond to a hateful comment with understanding and empathy. I can be just as vicious verbally. Um, and I just think if more of us were in a space that we had done our own inner healing and were able to deal with our shadow sides and acknowledge that we all have the capacity to be both kind and cruel, that the kind of healing and social transformation that we need would become possible. Uh, but it's hard when you're in the moment and someone is shouting at your face insults or threatening you in some way, to just remain calm and not respond with an insult back to them, kind of a thing. But as I've learned to shed these masks, not that they always stay off, they do return sometimes. What I've discovered is that um, my strong emotions and my um, grief and outrage, when I witness injustices or hear about them on the news, um, and it's just strong emotional reactions to all of that, are actually gifts. And that when what I used to see as shameful secrets, namely my mental health struggles and, you know, being in a psychiatric hospital that I voluntarily admitted myself to because I was so depressed, I knew that suicide was a real possibility I was considering and I needed help. In the past, I never would have told anyone that. It would have just been this horrible, shameful secret. And when I first started my Substack in 2022, and before that, I did some writing on Medium, I just basically bared my soul to whoever happened to stumble across my writing online. And at first, I was like, I don't, do I really want to share this much? Because, there's inevitably going to be some trolls that say hateful things, and can I handle that? Um, and what I learned was just so beautiful, the outpouring of support, and more importantly, people saying, "Me too, and thank you so much for being honest about this. I feel less alone now." And this, tip you shared, this coping strategy that helped you is helping me now. Um, and so far from vulnerability being a weakness, I came to see that it's actually a great strength, and that the real weakness is kind of burying emotions out of shame or fear and deciding that I'm going to have this mask on all the time where everyone thinks I have all my shit together and my life is perfect, and um, never have arguments with my husband, never, do anything but get praised and get awards and all the things. Um, Only share wonderful vacation photos online, that sort of thing. And by being honest, I have probably attracted a bigger audience than I would have if I had just, you know, put out there 10 steps to make money, lose weight, take your pick, that's just part of me being honest too, that I just was never willing to knowingly lie about something or to present myself as someone who was better than anybody else because I had figured something out. Um, so it's just healing. So I just encourage anyone who is scared to put themselves out there to do what's right for you. And if you don't feel ready to, by all means, don't do it. I'm not pressuring anyone to do anything. I'm just saying that for me, it was very healing because I had so much shame about my struggles. And when I wrote about them for the whole world to see, and so many people said me too and thank you, and shared their story in return in the comments or with people I've worked with one on one or in my support groups. um, it's just been so freeing. And if you've watched any of my Substack lives with guests, you know that almost every time what comes up is, the older I get, the less sure I am of things, the more curious I've become about learning new things, and just I'm more open to new ideas that my younger self, would have dismissed, and I care less about what people think. That's the overarching theme with everyone I've talked to, is that we just reached a point in our lives where we can see that the whole social emphasis on looking good and competing and being better than other people just wasn't how we wanted to live. It wasn't healthy for us. Obviously, wasn't doing anything to heal the world, and chose another path. And when you go against social norms and don't meet other people's expectations, then some of them don't like that. And some of them are in powerful positions. And so They may fire you or cause you to lose your job in some other way. They may, if cut off ties with you. Certainly in the religious world, I have many friends who are LGBTQ, and once they came out, suddenly their families wanted nothing to do with them, or their former faith community decided, this that they had once been this great leader within the church, and now they were like, we can't trust them around kids, or we don't want them here, or they need conversion therapy, or whatever. Um, but being real is worth the price. Now, obviously, there are some situations and some people it's not safe to be real around. And certainly, I would never tell anyone who is currently being abused in any way to just, suck it up and stay in the relationship and be nice in return. That's horrible advice. Absolutely, your safety has to come first, both physical and emotional safety. But at the same time, I would say for me, being willing to talk publicly, both online and in person. I give presentations and I do workshops um, about the whole of my life is just infinitely healthier and more rewarding. And um, I would do it even if it didn't also help other people, just because it's helped me so much. But it's quite an added bonus to know that my words have an impact and are helping other people on their recovery journeys, and giving encouragement that healing is possible, and no matter how hopeless your life seems or the world seems, that there are ways to make it better. Just little simple things that may seem insignificant, but they add up over time and they do make a difference. um our world emphasizes power, as power over other people, the power to influence them, tell them what to do, and they'll do it. And to me, real power is being comfortable in your own skin, and knowing what you want, and being willing to stand up for what you believe in and what you think is right, even if other people disagree or don't like that you're speaking up or helping someone that they don't think is worthy of help. Um, and realizing that again has just been so liberating. And um, same thing with being honest. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be honest in every single interaction, every moment of every day. But my husband and I have been married since 1991 and are still very much in love. And he's, was my biggest support person I leaned on when I was so depressed. And both of us come from homes where our parents divorced, after, in my case, after I had already left home as an adult, and in my husband's case, while he was in high school. And so we didn't have healthy communication modeled for us, or see our parents showing affection to each other or anything like that. Their long marriages were not happy marriages, and they probably should have divorced many years before they finally did. But we both went into our relationship knowing that, and being able to have conversations with each other of what we had observed as children and teenagers that we knew we did not want our relationship to be like. And so, we both have had lots of therapy over the years, and we both, went into our marriage having conversations ahead of time about things like whether or not we wanted children, um, our goals in life, just things that matter. Essentially, we really got to know each other well and had a lot of in depth conversations, and still do. But again, that doesn't mean we never have huge arguments. We're just able to talk it out later and apologize to each other, and uh, still want to be together, essentially. So I've been doing a lot of talking, and I appreciate all of you that have tuned in and are listening still. So I would love to know in the chat if any of this resonates with you, or if there's a particular mask that you have worn that and learned to take off. Just anything that you want to share about your own journey would be great. And I will also say, if you're not yet at a place to feel comfortable taking off your mask, but you would like to be, reach out to me. You can DM me on Substack. I also have on my coaching page, which is a tab on my Substack page. You can schedule a free Zoom call to just kind of have an initial consultation to see if I might be the right coach for you to work through a particular issue, or make a difficult decision, or deal with, family who has rejected you because you came out, or affiliated with a different political party, or whatever it might be. And if your company or business organization group of any kind would like to have either an in-person in the Houston area, or elsewhere, if you're a large company able to cover my travel cost, or and online, I speak at online summits. Um, I lead online groups. So if any of that is of interest to you, either as, collaborating with me on something, or having me speak to your group, or if you would like to do a Substack Live with me, I'm always looking for new guests. Basically, anyone who's willing to be honest about their struggles as well as their successes, and share the specific coping strategies that they have learned that have helped them, and how your beliefs have changed, and how that has changed your life as you've gotten older. And older can be any age. If you're 21, you're older than you were at 20. So no age limits there. I've had so many great conversations with so many amazing people, and I love doing these lives. Um, with other guests. I've just met so many fascinating people, and heard so many inspirational stories of overcoming hardships. But I am curious if, as I've talked about these different masks, if those of you who are watching live, if you can relate to wearing any of those masks. You don't have to go into detail, but I'm just curious. And if there are other masks I haven't mentioned that you feel like you either have been forced to wear in the past, or kind of still would like to take off, but don't think you can, or don't know how to. And just as an aside, if you don't want to share anything that in depth, just for fun, if you want to share what your kids or grandkids are dressing up as today for Halloween, what mask they're wearing, we can do that too. I do not have any kids, or grandkids, so I always enjoy seeing photos, or just hearing people describe uh, what their kids are dressing up as for Halloween. It's just a lot of fun to see the creativity. I remember when I was a child, actually, one of my siblings, that when the movie E.T. came out, I mean, we all loved the movie E.T., right? Who could not love that movie? But she, more than the rest of us, was just absolutely enthralled. And my mom handmade her this E.T. costume that was realistic beyond belief. I mean, it was just adorable. And so that was a lot of fun when I was a kid. That's the costume that stands out most to me. I'm reading in the comments here. Your sharing is helping me a lot with my own struggles. The perfectionist mask is one of the most difficult to take off. Currently working on it. Thank you for sharing your story. Yes, and the perfectionist mask is one that I too often still wear. Also, and that's honestly, that's one reason I've switched to doing more live conversations than written posts, because I agonize over written posts for hours because I am such a perfectionist. I can always find a way to reword a sentence where it's a little better, or this needs to be shorter, this needs to be longer, or this headline is lame. I should come up with a better one. That inner critic always has a way to make it better. And as I said earlier, when I was in school, I was that straight A student, and I also was the one who procrastinated because I didn't like having to write papers when I didn't get to pick what they were about and they bored me. So I would be up the entire night, the night before the paper was due, writing it, and that would be my one and only draft of that paper, which is one reason it took so long. But I would always get A's on the papers and all these great comments from the teacher. And sometimes I'd be asked to read a section of mine out loud. And so it just continuously reinforced that, achievement, and based my self worth on winning awards and getting praise and, getting straight A's and hundreds on the test and all of that. And so, I still am more of a perfectionist than I would like to be. Let's just say that, but I'm getting better. Uh, I actually caught a grammar mistake after I had published a piece, and was able to say to myself, you know what, it is not worth the hassle to go back in there and change that one word. Just let it be out there wrong. It's really not a big deal. So I'm getting better. But it is an ongoing struggle with perfectionism. And I actually, one of my earlier Substack lives was an interview with the co-author of a book about perfectionism. And her name is Michelle Molitor, and you can find the video on my Substack page if you're interested. But she is a co-author of a book called I Am Perfectly Flawsome, which is just an awesome title. First off, Flawsome, Flawsome, instead of awesome. So, and it's about toxic perfectionism and ways to overcome it. And she was very honest about her own perfectionism and some things that she had done. So we had a great conversation. But that seems to be such a common struggle. And actually, one of my part-time jobs now, very part-time, but I love it, is I am a verbal SAT tutor and ACT. So for high school kids getting ready to take those college entrance exams, essentially, um, I tutor them on verbal skills. And so, I see in those students kind of me when I was in high school, the super high achiever ones. Now they're all different levels, but the ones that are very high achievers that, they're going to get into Yale or Harvard, and they want to get an absolutely perfect score on the SAT or ACT, or at least like for the ACT, a 35 out of a possible 36. And for the SAT, like at least a 1500 something out of a max of 1600. And that was me too. So I can totally relate to that. And I actually have a sister who did get a perfect score on the verbal part of the SAT, which is virtually unheard of. Um, so yeah, I totally get the perfectionism and the feeling like, it's never going to be good enough. Um, and the other big one for me is comparison. I despite all of my wonderful knowledge that it's not healthy to compare myself to others, and that we are all unique and beautiful in our own way, and we each have our unique struggles, and some things that are easy for me would be difficult, if not impossible, for others, and vice versa. It's very easy to get in that mindset of, who am I to do this? Other people have already said this, done this far better than I ever could, or you know just feeling inadequate because someone else is making more money, someone else has more subscribers, and they haven't been on Substack as long as I have. All of those things. um, but being upfront about it, talking about it, again, helps reduce the shame and the sense that there's something wrong with me, because I always get so many other people saying, yeah, I feel the same way. And uh, so Again, just another plug for being real. And that's, I think, the reason I continue to get new subscribers is because people can tell I'm not bullshitting them and I'm not claiming to have the answers to their problems. I'm saying this is what has helped me and this is something I still struggle with. And, treating them as equals versus I'm the expert from on high, the guru that, you need to listen to and do what I tell you to. I'll just give you my honest opinion and tell you, ask you what you think and say try it, and if it doesn't work, don't do what I do. Do something different that works for you. So, anybody else want to throw anything out there? I've been talking a lot and would love to get some more comments. Thank you, Lillian, for posting something in the chat so that someone else said something other than me. Oh, thank you, Lillian. You are awesome. Always nice to hear things like that. And I will say I'm getting better at telling myself things like that, which makes a big difference. If you saw my article about the little things that make a big difference in my mental health, one of them is this stuffed pink octopus that I call my inner child's representative. And every night when it lives on my nightstand, so every night when I go to bed, I pick it up and I pet it and I tell it, I'm so proud of you. And, all of your big feelings are okay. And I love you just the way you are, and things like that. Things that are still sometimes hard for me to say to my adult self. But this adorable little smiling pink octopus that represents my inner child. I mean, who can be mean to a cute little kid, right? So that helps me a lot. And I actually have a screensaver on my phone that's a photo of me as a young child, and I have the words underneath it, "My love will not let you down." So that's another constant reminder throughout the day, and I have little motivational stickers everywhere, the gamut, and so, the more reminders, the better because I had how many years, 40 or at least 40 years of, you know, feeling bad about myself and feeling like I had to be perfect and win all the awards and get all the praise in order to validate my worth and earn the right to exist basically that um I can know better intellectually but there's still that deep core belief that continually needs to be challenged and have the positive messages reinforced as often as possible. As I wrote in one of my articles, it's not that I never get into negative thought spirals anymore. It's just that they don't last as long and I know how to get out of them. And so recovery is an ongoing journey for any human being. And any of us who delude ourselves into thinking we have fully arrived and we know everything and we're never going to hurt again or say something mean or have any kind of problem because we've got life figured out. Well, good luck to you with that because something's going to happen to prove otherwise. At least that's been my experience and that of every person I have ever coached or ministered to or just had an honest conversation with. And I will give it about 5 minutes to see if anyone else wants to add something to the chat. And if not, I will wrap this up and go about my day. But I'd love to hear thoughts from any of you. I'm so grateful Lillian has shared some, but if anybody else would like to say anything about is this resonating with your experience? Um, what helps you cope when you're feeling really bad about yourself? Anything like that? Love to hear it. And I hope that maybe someday on Substack Lives will make it possible for people, me to see who's tuned in and have you raise your hand if you want to speak, or um, let me see that you are in the process of typing something in the chat, like text messages on phones do. Um, but I'll give it a couple more minutes before I sign off. And thanks to all who are watching, whether or not you ever type anything in the chat. I just appreciate you being here, and it's always still something of a surprise to me that anyone who doesn't already know me well would care what I think and want to tune in and listen to this, or read my written post, or have me come and speak to their group, or be on their summit or podcast. So I just appreciate your interest in me and my work. And like I said, if you would like to talk about some more stuff privately, or explore the possibility of one-on-one coaching via Zoom, you can find out more about that on my Substack page, or you can just DM me on Substack with questions. And I just love uh, having in-depth conversations with people. I'm actually an introvert, which shocks people because I'm totally comfortable with public speaking and um, those sorts of things. But what I like are in-depth conversations. My introversion is that I cannot stand to go to like a cocktail party or a networking event or any kind of gathering where it's all superficial conversation and just chit chat about things that don't matter to me, that I'm not really interested in, that are just surface level trivial things. But I absolutely love one-on-one conversations and small group conversations, and even auditorium full of lots of people conversations, when they are real and about things that matter. Uh, and so doing these lives is great for me. I like them much better when I have a guest to talk to. But today's guest had to cancel at the last minute, and I decided, well, I'll do it anyway and see what happens. So thank you all for listening. And since I haven't seen anything else in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye now, and happy Halloween, and hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Bye.